indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll start with our council activity reports. I will lead off. We had some meetings. Tarek and I met with Bernie Stang a couple of weekends ago to talk about featuring some of her artwork around City Hall and some creative ideas that we might be able to do with that. We also had a meeting of the Labor Negotiations Board for the first round of police negotiations. We were able to reach a tentative agreement with the police union, incorporating some creative changes into that contract as far as benefits that should hopefully increase officer retention and bring us more competitive with our surrounding cities. So that's all I have. Hertzberg, good to see you back.
Yes, good to be back. Only meeting I had was the police negotiations, and Sean pretty well summed that up.
Ms. Brick.
I was on vacation, so I don't have much today. Just nothing official, just some ongoing holiday planning, so.
Ms. Sonia.
An economic development meeting last week, but other than that, that's all I have.
All right, Mr. Thielen.
Policies and procedures meeting on Wednesday, which a couple of the topics are going to be addressed tonight.
Thank you, we did have that one, yep.
Yep.
All right, department heads, Mr. Mergen.
All right, thank you. First of all, if anybody's wondering, the CenterPoint Energy is updating their gas line from behind City Hall here down to Ampey Drive. Out at the compost, being weather is cooperating, we are going to leave that open until next Monday, the 29th. And we are also coordinating getting all the brush out there chipped. Roto chopper is very likely to go beyond that. We have two grants that we closed out, the wellhead protection grant and the airport. The first one is the COVID relief. Those are both in your informational. You want to take a look at those. If we do have a snow event, just a reminder to residents that it is your responsibility to please clean your sidewalks. Let's see, Girl Scouts, the library's in the park. They are in and open if anybody hasn't seen them. They look very nice, so kudos to them for getting that done. Obviously, the parks are closed. Just a quick update on that. Out at Veterans Park, we did have 28 reservations out there this year. That was including the concert in the parks. 9 reservations at the gazebo parks. There was 14 games out at the soccer field this year, plus all the practices, which was very good. Activity at the splash pad was very good, obviously, with the warm weather we had. The fishing pier wasn't quite as much as last year, but it was very strong out there. The swimming beach, the boat landing, obviously had a lot of use again this year. I guess that's one thing we will have to watch with our new ordinance in place to make sure we don't have conflicts between the people using the shelter and the boaters. The biggest thing the park board is looking at over the winter here is the Ampey Park shelter and likely trying to get some playground equipment there. So 2 big projects for over the winter which we are working on. The water plant filter media. We have seen a reduced time in between our backwash runs to maintain the same quality of water. This stems back to some of the filter issues which we had a couple years ago. And the other one obviously is the remodeling of our shop over at 111 Pomeroy. So you can look forward to those coming to the council in the next month or 2. Thank you.
Mr. Robert Fine.
Some of the boards I participated in were the policies and procedures, the labor negotiations, EDAP, and the trail board. I also met with the library group and attended the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis Regional Economic Webinar, where they're discussing the outlook for pretty much the upper Midwest region, and all of it looks pretty positive so far. They're saying that and they did this based on a survey of companies in the area. They're seeing some slowdown, but overall positive, and they still continue to see issues in the labor market, and one of the reasons they're citing for issues in the labor market is the child care issues and shortage. That's it.
All right. All right, so then just a quick note, and I realize, Megan, I owe you a return phone call on this, but come the new year, we'll be revisiting board assignments. Generally, we leave them the same, but if anybody wants us on a different committee or off one that they've got, let me know, and we'll talk about that before the new year, so. Then, we have our open forum. If anybody would like to address us on something on or off the agenda, we have a couple minutes to do that. Okay, seeing no rush to the podium, I'll move on then to our consent agenda. That includes the minutes listed on page 1, the vouchers on page 2, along with the liquor store clerk resignation on page 3. To Bill's credit, I understand Ms. Potter moved on to bigger and better things out of Bill's control, so no hard feelings there.
Thank you.
And then regarding our actual agenda, items 10 and 11 were removed. I'm still waiting on an evaluation from one of the council members for Mr. El Rafai, and then a couple of department heads. If you want to send me some thoughts and feedback, then we can do an evaluation at our next meeting. So we'd be looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion by Sony. Is there a second?
Second.
Heard it from Thielen. Thank you. Any further discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries. All right, going on to the temporary street closure, the application found on page 4. Mr. Bertram, anything you'd like to tell us about this?
The only thing that's would be different is we had the application for Washington Avenue from the streetlights here to James Street. And being at the location of the big trees we moved in front of the library, we're requesting to have the James Street to the Railroad Street be closed. So that was the only difference between the application there.
Have you had the chance to talk to AMBI about going that far?
I did email Jerry Quaid, and he was fine with it. He said, thanks for the heads up. So AMBI was contacted.
Jacob, did you talk to the recovery center? I don't know that it'll be an issue, but if they've got, a session or something like that going on,
I have not, but I will.
it could be something to look at.
I'll make the motion to approve the Chamber's temporary street closure to close Washburn Avenue from James Street to Railroad Street on Saturday, December 4th, from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion by Sony, seconded by Rick. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? That carries. Thank you, sir. All right, the Minnesota Investment Fund Program application for Avon Plastics. All right.
Okay, I'll give information on that, some background, and then any questions you have. We have representatives from Avon here today. First of all, the Minnesota Investment Fund, if you're not familiar with it, I'll give you the quick background here. MIF, as it's known, provides financing to help add new workers and retain high-quality jobs on a statewide basis. The focus is on industrial, manufacturing, and technology-related industries to increase local and state tax base and improve economic vitality statewide. Funds are awarded to the local government units who provide loans to assist expanding businesses. So the requirements are, well, first of all, they must meet a minimum criteria, a minimum number of jobs created or jobs retained at a certain level of wages. At least 50% of the total project cost must be privately financed through owner equity and other lending sources. Most applicants, according to DEED, selected for funding have at least 70% private funding. There are 2 components to this program. The first one is a grant component, which is based on the number of new full-time employees hired during this project or this process, and low-cost financing component. I'm going to give you an example so you can see it visually, but let me walk through it first. The maximum MIF will award is 10% of the total project size, which includes the grant amount. So from the discussion I had with DEED and that what you guys had with DEED, the size of the project is estimated to be $1.84 million, with a total pledge to hire 10 new full-time employees. DEED is offering a grant of up to $6,000 per employee or $60,000. So if we were to take 10% of the total project cost, that will be $184,000. I'll show you the numbers here in a minute. So if you take the total project cost and deduct the grant amount, that leaves $124,000 to be financed under this program. So as I said earlier, deed awards the funds to the city, and then the city lends out or the city lends it out, and we must also administer it. And what does administering it mean? It means that we must submit an annual report for the first 2 years to deed, giving them an update on the process of the project, making sure it's complete, and making sure at the end of year 2 that the pledge of hiring the number of employees has been complete. So in return, what does this do for the city? The city is able to keep 40% of the loan amount, not the grant amount, repaid, and must be put into the city's revolving loan fund. So I'll show you the example here. So say if the project size is 1.84 million, MIF is awarding 10%, so 184,000. 60,000 is grant, which is $6,000 per employee. The repayable loan amount is 124,000, and over the course of the term, which we set, by the way, we set the term and we set the interest rate, we get 40% retained in our loan fund, which means roughly 49,600 to the revolving loan fund. The city will need to complete the application with Avon, pass a resolution, and set the loan terms, which is number of years and interest rate. When I talked to Deed, I asked them, I said, well, what are the typical terms? They said interest rates can be anywhere from 2 to 3%. I said, well, how about 0? They said, yeah, 0 is fine, it's up to you. And they said typical terms are 5 to 7 years for this type of project. So basically, it's up to us to pass this resolution, and then, you know, the role of us administering the program entails just making sure, or annually, giving a report to Deed on the progress or the status of it, making sure you're abiding by the terms that were agreed to. So that's all I have on the program.
Any questions regarding the program for Tarek or anyone from Avon? Certainly any opportunity to get some state money in to help businesses is always appreciated, so.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what's the project going to be?
Improving our recycling, plastic recycling. and-
Okay.
And better discharge water for the city. We're adding some additional filtration.
Okay. Thank you.
So with that, we'd be first looking for a motion to submit the Minnesota Investment Fund application.
I'll make the motion to submit the MIF application with Avon Plastics.
Thank you, Gene. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Sony, seconded by Hertzberg, to submit the MIF application with Avon Plastics. Any further discussion on that? None? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None?
Thank you, folks. Much appreciated.
All right, and then with that, we need a motion to administer the loan program for Avon.
I'll make the motion to administrate the MIF loan program for Avon Plastic.
Second.
We have a motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Phelan, to administer the MIF loan program. Any further discussion on that? None? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? That carries. Okay. All right, on to item C, the dog and cat ordinance. Policies and procedures met, we discussed this. Basically, we pay for a software program that costs us $750 a year. We have about 50-ish people who 60? Yeah, 60 or so people who actually register their dogs and cats. We used to have more when it was being heavily enforced. Policies and procedures discussed it and said, well, we can ask the chief to start writing letters and seeing if we can get people in. But at what point are we spending more money to have the chief write letters to get a $10 license fee or something that we don't really need that's not going to benefit the public like it used to when this was first created? So we said this is not worth the money or the expense. It's better to just eliminate this requirement and refund anything that's been paid for 2022.
Now, the rest of the ordinances for dog control remain in effect.
Yes.
The number of dogs you can have, the dog that bites somebody, on and on.
Yeah.
This is only about registering the pet, and people are on their own.
Yep.
And we don't do anything tonight, this is just for publication.
So, any objection to that? All right. Going on to D, the alcohol consumption in public places. There was some discussion about changing this ordinance, some back and forth with our insurance group. And taking a look at these minutes here, they somewhat conflicted with my memory of this. But basically, we talked about amending the ordinance as included in here, but then also working with the fire department to pass a resolution indicating that there would be no alcohol consumed or served, anything like that, during any meetings or presence or trainings, things of that nature. Is that your recollection as well, Paul?
Yep.
Yeah, so we're going to do a resolution with them.
Okay. The thing that I would just point out, and I don't know anything about what happened at policies and procedures, but the ordinance doesn't do what policies and procedures talked about by saying it would only allow off-duty firefighters. I mean, that's not what the ordinance says, but I thought we talked about that.
And that was, yeah, that's why there's a little bit of a difference in my recollection between the minutes. Policies hasn't approved these minutes, they're the draft as of right now. But the ordinance, the language in there is what we discussed and approved, and then working on a resolution with the fire department on any regulations and just saying that it's not going to be consumed, things of that nature.
So it won't cover any like banquets or anything like that unless they hire someone, caterer or someone with a valid liquor license? Is that what the?
Doesn't say that, it just says that it's for firefighters.
Okay. But if they do want to do that, that's their option?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions about that? Okay. Then I'm going to the 2022 liquor licenses. These have all been received and appear to be in order. Yes, sir. Okay. So we'd be looking to approve the on-sale liquor and Sunday liquor licenses for the businesses here.
I'll make the motion to approve the 2022 on-sale liquor and Sunday liquor licenses for the Painesville American Legion Post 271, Queen Bee's Bar and Grill Incorporated, and the Eatery at 112 LLC.
Right, I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Sony, to approve the 2022 on-sale liquor and Sunday liquor licenses for the Painesville American Legion, Post 271, Queen Bee's Bar and Grill, and the Eatery. Any further discussion on that? All right, none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. That carries. All right. Forgiveness of the loan for the airport on page 29. Tara, can you give us a rundown of this?
Ron knows more about that.
This is the one remaining loan that we've taken out over the years that is remaining. It is from the airport back in 2013 and was for the slurry seal. And it was taken from the 125 capital improvement from the airport to fund the project in Fund 455.
All right, so we'd be looking for a motion to forgive that, to clean up the books.
I'll make a motion to forgive the loan of $54,400 from Fund 125 Airport Capital Improvement to Fund 455 Painesville Municipal Airport.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Soini to forgive the loan of $54,400 from Fund 125 Airport Capital Improvement to Fund 455 Painesville Municipal Airport. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. That carries. Then we'd be looking at Resolution 2021-20, designating the polling place as the Green Roof Area Center.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2021-20 as a designation of polling place.
I'll second.
A motion by Sony, seconded by Brick, approving Resolution 2021-20, designation of polling place. Any further discussion on this? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. That carries. Right. On to page 32. Policies and procedures talked about incorporating a complaint policy for city employees. Purpose of this, at least from my perspective, was to help guide those who might receive some sort of a complaint by a citizen or somebody against an employee and say, look, here's our official policy, this is how it's going to be handled. I'm not ignoring you, I'm not pushing you off, this is just how we're going to do things internally and take care of things. So we put together a formal policy that went through that group and would ask that it be adopted here. I don't know if anybody has any questions, we can discuss it.
I have one on the complaint form itself.
Yeah,
If this is what we're gonna go with, the second, it says 2, circle 1. But we don't need all those choices, correct?
No,
correct. I think that could probably be put under the, like, office use only section. Because certainly somebody, whoever's filling out the form isn't gonna know who it goes to.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we didn't spend a lot of time looking at that form, but that's a good catch, so.
wasn't this gonna be put on the website or something though too? Where they might fill it out themselves?
I mean, it can be there to download and they can do it that way, yeah, that's easy to do.
But you can still move the circle 1 part down to the office use only section.
Right.
Are these forms gonna be available to those people who don't have availability to a printer?
Yeah, they'll be here at City.
Okay,
We'll have them at some-
okay.
Yep. Yeah, I thought of it more of an internal thing as well. They'll be there for the public to use if needed, so.
And name, address, and phone number must be on the complaint or it's null and void.
Yeah.
Have we had a motion?
We have not had a motion, we'd still be looking.
Okay, I'll make the motion to adopt the complaints against city employee policy.
Okay. I have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Thielen, to adopt the complaint against city employee policy. All those in, any further discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries. On to page 38, the emergency management director position. This has been bouncing around policies and procedures for some time, trying to figure out what to do, whether or not it's worth hiring, how we're going to handle it. In essence, a lot of other cities just determine that the mayor is going to serve as the emergency management director. We talked about that. The mayor's position in this case is that if there's an emergency, the mayor better be here to handle it, regardless of whether I'm called emergency management director or not. So I'm willing to take on that role, and that would become the responsibility of whoever my successor might be whenever they take office. So we'd be looking at the mayor taking over those responsibilities for everything except for the storm watch and calling in storm watchers and things like that. That's something that the police department's been handling for the last 8 or so months at least. 2-3 years maybe.
Quite a few years.
So just making that official.
Yeah.
One of the things that was discussed as an alternative is handing everything over to the police department since they are staffed 24/7. And I think, my opinion, and I've I don't want to assume the rest of the board felt the same way, but the police department has enough to do already. We don't want to burden you guys any further, so.
I'm not against it.
With that, we have a number of motions, if anyone's willing to make those motions, otherwise we can continue our conversation.
Yeah, I'd like to continue it. One thing that's missing out here was we discussed the compensation, where it would go.
Yeah, so this was a paid position before. My position is that I'm already getting paid, you don't need to pay me any more. And I'll abstain from any vote, and that's all I'm gonna say about it.
Were we paying the police and extras
We were not.
while they were so?
No, while it was.
We aren't gonna save or spend any more by going this direction.
No.
But the previous one before that was paid, is that
But
correct?
Right.
I do think if you have to go to any special training or meetings, it should be the same, that you get the day's pay and the mileage and.
Yeah.
Right, I think if
I don't know about training that you're gonna do at home in front of the computer, but for sure, any training that you have to go someplace.
Yeah, that should be clear
I
too.
mean, that's gotta be covered.
With a per diem and the mileage, yeah.
Okay.
And that's the same we do for any other department going into training.
I would just, suggest that if you think that a future mayor, that it's burdensome, in other words, that it maybe should be compensated in some other way, then before the next election cycle, you should look at changing the mayor's salary to reflect that. But I don't think you can do it now, in the middle of the cycle, but you could look at it for the next election.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to have the mayor assume the responsibilities of the emergency management director, except all duties related to storm watch.
Okay, I have a motion by Sony, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg. To have the mayor assume all the responsibilities of the emergency management director, save those related to storm watch. Any further discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries.
I'll make the motion to have the police department assume all duties related to storm watch.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Thielen, seconded by Brick, to have the police department assume all duties related to storm watch. Any further discussion on that? None, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None, that carries. Then is there a motion to dissolve the position?
Hold on here a second, Sean. You look at the item description, it says emergency management director position, and now it says on down here, we want to dissolve it.
Because we don't officially have one now.
Okay, just want to make sure there isn't any damning modifiers, for lack of better.
No, I don't think so. That's just something that's going to become the responsibility of the mayor, and
Sure, okay.
is that a motion then to dissolve?
I'll move to dissolve the emergency management director position.
Okay, I have a motion by Brick, is there a second?
Second.
I heard it from Gene first, all right. Any further discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries. Great. Going on then to items J and K, if I can just talk about these in unison for 1 second. These were put on the agenda. I guess my position would be, they haven't been discussed by policies or by labor negotiation, and maybe we should send it to those committees first, before bringing it back to council at our next meeting.
I agree.
Any objection to that? Okay. So then J and K will go, we've got a policies and procedures meeting December 8th. We'll get it on that agenda, and then it can come back to council for our next meeting. Great. Old business, the transfer of entitlements then on 45. Ron, you want to tell us about that?
Okay, sure. Under the NIPIAS program, first of all, our entitlements are $150,000 a year. And being with the cost of projects today, it has become very common for communities and airports to loan and borrow out these entitlements. Several years ago, we did loan ours out, and then we built our hangar. We then needed to borrow money from other airports. There is no interest charged either way on these loans. It's a very good program for funding these type of projects. At this point, we are ready to pay back the city of Litchfield $100,000, and we thank them for the loan.
Would it not just make more sense for the federal government to increase the entitlements and save the paperwork and all the transfers?
Absolutely. We brought that up many times, asking them, because this has,
I know, it's too logical.
and as long as we've been with the program, they've never increased that amount. It's been $150,000 for, yeah.
Well, God bless the feds. All right, we'd be looking then for a motion to approve the request for the transfer of entitlements.
I'll make the motion to approve the request for FAA approval of agreement for transfer of entitlement.
Great, I have a motion by Hertzberg, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Soini to approve the request for FAA approval of agreement for transfer of entitlement. All in favor indicate by, any further discussion? Man, I thought that was gonna be lively. All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, that carries. All right. Well, that concludes all business then, because Bill doesn't want to talk to us tonight.
Do you not want to?
I just love your deer in the headlights looking at me. I didn't do this to you, I'm sorry.
remember saying that.
No.
So, during the COVID time.
Can you grab a microphone?
Yeah.
Can you use the podium?
Just talk up there.
Much better. On TV can hear you.
So with the recent resignation and the staff member taking an additional full-time job during COVID, you guys let me up the hours of who I have left. I'd like to do that again, at least through January, to get us through the holidays, because the chances, it'd be great if we get somebody hired, but just in case we don't. So I'm asking if we can do that again, because the staff that I have remaining would, is willing to work those extra hours, at least through January, through the holiday.
Plus you have a seasonal coming back soon.
Just starting the 20th through about the 7th,
Okay.
possibly.
3 weeks.
3 weeks I have a seasonal, so that would help us tremendously. Not saying I would need everybody 40 hours, but the ability to give these people that temporarily would be fantastic. That would be the first one. And then, in addition, during COVID, if with the shortage of staff, if something happens to a couple of us that we have COVID, instead of waiting for the council to meet, if we have to make an adjustment to the hours on the fly, which I hate changing the hours we have now, but if we have to, we're down to 2 people, I'd like to have that conversation with the city administrator that we can make that decision and not have to come to council approval, and trusting that I want to be open as many hours as we can.
I have a question for you, Bill. Oh,
Yes.
did I jump in front of you there?
Oh, no, absolutely.
Okay. With the allowing the staff to work up to 40 hours a week, is that going to have any conflict with the union?
We have been able to get around that since it's temporary. It's not a permanent thing.
Okay.
We're looking at 30 days.
Okay, I was just wondering if they would look at this as a full-time position requiring full-time benefits, and if that would cause any issues.
No, because we did this during COVID that we were allowed to.
Okay.
And we're kind of, a lot of us are in the same boat now. We've been pretty lucky up until this last now. We've been very fortunate.
How many times have we done this now? We did it during COVID. And refresh my recollection, was that just one long stretch, or was it,
We did,
I thought we renewed it at least once.
we got some help during the summer, so we were okay. Once we got through summertime, then we went back. Boy, God, I'm trying to think of such a long time ago, but it wasn't.
Okay. The reason why I ask is I know we've talked about this, and as long as it's temporary, it's fine, and as long as it's not a permanent thing, it's okay. But, I mean, our esteemed council colleague is an employee who's prohibited from working full-time. And I'm just wondering, and Bill, maybe you can opine as to this, is how many times we can get away with these temporary increases?
I don't know. I just, I think that we'd probably want to talk to the attorney we use for employment law stuff to get a more knowledgeable opinion on this. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm guessing, given what's going on, that there might be some forgiveness, but yeah, you don't want to do it too often, for sure.
You know, the policy states that our staff can work up to 32 hours. Very few of them ever work that on an average, so it has to go over an average of a certain time. So we've been able to get by doing that. I've got a week coming up in December where I'm going to be down to about 4 of us before Shay gets back. A week and a half, almost a week and a half, 10 days, where there's going to be just 4 of us. It's going to be pretty thin. If I have to go to 32, that's what I'm most worried about, is that 10-day period.
She'll be back on the 16th.
18th. They come back.
I thought they told me the 16th, but that's okay. You could be right. I mean, you probably are right.
Yeah, we just discussed it a little bit ago.
Yeah.
It's going to be the 14th. No, it's going to be the 8th through the 19th. They return the 19th.
No, they return on the 18th.
Right, but they didn't want to work on the 19th.
Oh, yeah, no, I know they come back on the 18th.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you just wondering about me in particular for that, Sean, or?
I just don't want to run into issues.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm tempted to say let's exclude you from this, but I don't want to single you out.
the conflict of interest is different from, because the liquor store hours are up to 32, the conflict of interest for this particular council position states that whatever is in the city's ordinance, which is regularly up to or over 40, which I don't usually come close to, but that regularly is the, what does that mean? That's very vague, but personally, I don't usually come near 40. So I don't think for me in particular it will be an issue, and obviously I'm going to abstain from this vote, but I'm not sure what that means for me. Bill and I can discuss it after,
I mean, it's been a while since I've looked at that, but I think as to her having a conflict as an individual council member, I think the spirit of that is you got to average full-time, and, if she's a long ways from that, then I wouldn't be too concerned about that. I'm more worried about the union side of it than I am her having a problem as a council member with, as long as this is a pretty short period of time, it's not going to bring her average up anywhere close to 40 hours.
And just to be safe, would it be okay to put in there due to seasonal staff shortages?
I think we've got that just through our discussion.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
I think Jennifer's got some particulars on how often this has happened, or what.
So we've done it 3 different times up to this point, May 11th, 2020 through September 7th of 2020.
Okay.
And then we went from October 12th of 2020 through December 31st of 2020. And then the latest one was June 28th of 21 through September 6th of 21.
okay.
Thank you. But I thought we talked to the union, we talked to those folks to make sure it was okay with them at that time.
Yeah, the union has not had any issues with the increase in hours on their
Okay.
part the last 3 times.
All right, well then, I'm satisfied.
And Bill, you're cutting it at 40, nobody's gonna get overtime.
I pray not, but, you know, if somebody gets, what I run into is if somebody gets COVID, then all hands on deck. I mean,
How close are we to putting on a eligibility list again?
oh, it's out. I mean, we've had help wanted. We never closed that. We kind of kept that open. So if somebody does apply, Tarek and I can, and the city administrator can interview and get them going. And we're having the same issue as what you talked about earlier in your report. It's just getting the people back on the workforce again.
Yeah.
I don't have any applications.
I don't either, and I've handed out a couple.
I thought you said you had one, or that,
I've never seen it come back.
okay.
You know, and I can cover a lot of these shifts myself during the day. It's just, end of the year stuff gets a little hairy. I just don't want to see customer service suffer. You see what everybody else is going through. I don't want to see that. You know, that's why I'm asking.
Well, I know the proprietor of a local wine and beer making shop is closing, so she might be looking for work here soon.
We'll take anybody.
Wow.
Fill out an application. We'll see how that goes.
I'm retiring.
Yeah, you can retire with me too.
I'm retiring.
No?
I'll make the motion to allow the existing staff work up to 40 hours per week until January 1st, 2022.
There's a motion by Sony, is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
All right, seconded by Hertzberg to allow existing liquor store staff to work up to 40 hours per week, extending until January 1st, 2022. With one abstention, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, that carries.
I'll make sure I get a MOU from
Perfect.
And if I hire somebody, they'll be cut back. I mean, if somebody, 10 people are going to show up tomorrow, I'm going to hire them, so we'll be in good shape. Thank you.
And then regarding the city store hours, or the liquor store hours, and adjustment without coming to council, I think that makes sense. If there's no one there to run the store, it doesn't matter.
I'll make the motion to allow the city administrator and liquor store manager to adjust the store hours at the liquor store as necessary.
I have a motion by Sony, is there a second?
No, second.
Seconded by Thielen. Abstaining again?
Yes.
Okay, with one abstention, any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries. All right, that concludes the business provision of our meeting here. We do have a number of informational things, including Bell's Liquor Store report, the meeting schedules, notice of grant closure for the airport, the wellhead grant closure, as Ron mentioned earlier, on both of those, garbage rates from West Central Sanitation, along with the number of reports. All right, thank you, everyone. We stand adjourned.